Hi guys, it's Kelly here and I'm back with another video. Today's video is featuring some products from the new release from Trinity Stamps. We're making two cards. I'm using the He Is Risen, Brighter Days Ahead, At the Cross, the Rainbow Shaker die, and then these are some older products that I have. The Edges, Hills and Slopes, Catching Rays, the, it's their rectangles, and then this is their rainbow die set. We're just going to be using the cloud part. So, I've been wanting to do like floating sentiments. I've seen them for a while. I just had to get the proper products to do it correctly. And so we're going to do it two different ways today. So here, what I'm doing is this is just regular acetate. Trinity Stamps has a cloud stencil, but I don't have it. And I wanted to create clouds behind my rainbow as well as behind my cross. So I'm kind of doing my own makeshift stencil here is basically what I'm doing. And you do want something that's non-porous, that's going to, protect your paper and also hold up to your ink blending. So that's why I chose the acetate. I did it one side and then the other so I could kind of mix up what side I was using. And then here I'm using the hill. This is going to be for the cross card, for the cross to sit on top of this. Save both pieces. We'll need both. So I'm just going to cut out my hill. Then I'm going to take that top piece that I just told you we were going to need. And that is what I'm going to cut my clouds out of. This way I have the bottom edge of the hill and they'll just line up really nicely together. And I won't have to worry about like any additional bulk of the clouds being behind. Alternatively, I could have just used my pre-made stencil to put it behind there, behind the little hill. This is my cross and its wraps pieces. My rainbow, I'm not going to use the shaker portion of it. I'm just going to use the full rainbow for this. And then the clouds. Yes, I'm doing ink blending. You could totally cut these out of regular cardstock, but I always find that I like the look of ink blending better. So I've picked out some blues. I do want to leave my clouds white, but I do want to add a little bit of color to the base of them. So I'm starting with Tumbled Glass, and then I will go to Salty Ocean, and then I will go to Blueprint Sketch. Very little Blueprint Sketch. You may notice that this all of a sudden is much, much faster. It was it was necessary, unfortunately, because we are making two cards. And so there are certain parts of it that I did have to speed up. I figure, you've probably seen me ink blending or other card makers ink blending. If for some reason you're like, I'm super interested in your ink blending technique, by all means, you can use the controls on your YouTube channel to slow it down. It's just going to make me sound like the Peanuts teacher, like, rah, 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 rah. And that's fine. Because if what you're looking for is to slow it down to see how I'm doing it, then you've already listened to me talk. So now those two pieces are done. For the cloud background here, why, Kelly? Why do you go back and do things that don't work? So here what I'm doing is I'm holding the stencil with my hand. I didn't tape anything down here. This is risky business, folks. And I'm not sure why it didn't occur to me to get out my sticky mat, but it will here in just a little bit. So the first time I did it with just the tumbled glass. My intention was to do a very pastel kind of cloud background, and then have my really bright rainbow. Here I'm just kind of marking where I think the rainbow is going to go, so that way I can get my rays in. Honestly, at the end of the day, I don't even think you can see these, but I like leaving in all of the parts so that you guys can see the process, like the whole kit and caboodle, because maybe it will inspire you in a different way, even though that's not what mine ended up looking like. Know what I'm saying? So I did a little bit of the squeezed lemonade, and then I did a little bit more of the mustard seed. I wanted the rays to be coming out from behind the rainbow, and now I'm going to go in. I've gotten my sticky mat now, so it's not going to move. And basically, I'm just going to work in rainbow color, and I'm going to work right over the blue that's already there, because I'm only very lightly adding any color. For the most part, in fact, I'm not even picking up any color from the ink pads. I'm just using what's left on my blending buddies. And so I just started at the bottom with violet and worked my way up to pink. I had a little bit of some extra clouds at the top, and I just did violet again, just repeating that kind of rainbow look. And I really do like this background, but it did not work, y'all, it did not work for what my intention was. So getting out some more tumbled glass, just adding a little bit of color to these clouds, nothing crazy. And then I do like to ink blend my little rainbow pieces. And for the cloth that's like the swag portion that's on the cross, I chose to go with purple. I will have, once I remember that I need to do it, like the yellow rays in the background. And so, plus, purple back, biblically was, it's it was viewed as like a royal color. But anywho, so that's why I chose that. You could absolutely also do white, but I wanted a pop of color. So I'm going to just very quickly, you can see I'm only doing one color at a time, just adding a base color to my little rainbow arches. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the cross with a little bit of brown. Now, I can't ever leave anything alone because, well, if you watch my channel, you know me. So I am going to go in and I'm going to do a little bit of very little Copic coloring. So I'm adding a little bit of a wood design to my cross. Just on this, it doesn't matter which way you go. You can go vertically like I did, or you can go horizontally. But whichever way you go, you got to make the wood grain all go the same way. That's it. That's the only trick to this. And then for the swag, because this is a die and already has the embossed area in it, you literally can just follow the lines. So these two little pieces are actually meant to sit on top of the tails that are in the back. So that's, even though they're small, that is what I'm doing. I'm lining them up, then using my lightest color to get where the shadow should be. And then I'm going to put my shadows down based on that. Now, could you guess? Absolutely. I mean, you could just make that whole side darker if you wanted. But this is how I color almost all of my layering dies. And then again, that embossed area on the like the front portion is going to show us exactly where the darkest points need to be. And then we're just going to blend everything out from there. This is going to help it to be really, really dimensional with the addition of the coloring. I did use 4 colors because that's just my typical go-to. That's what I feel like gives me the best results. But even just using a 2-color blend, adding any amount of shading to the embossed area is going to give you a more dimensional look. So now here, like, we're nearly done just, blending everything out. And then we're going to move on to the actual arches. For this, I really did very minimal. I added a little bit of shading to kind of the legs and then the underneath of it because it is going to be in our background. Here is this, basically this background that I completely forgot about. So I guess I got caught up with all the other things and I was trying to move too fast, I think. But this is the background for the cross card. So we added a little bit of blue sky at the bottom that will help the top of the white clouds pop forward. And then we are going to add those rays coming out from behind the cross. And then with whatever was left over there, I just hit kind of the top of the sky. So now here is finally to the point where we are going to be doing the actual floating sentiment technique. So what I have here is, these are from Spellbinders and they're like special glimmer sheets. These will accept heat. So if you want to do the second technique, which is the heat embossing, you have to have something that will accept heat for your acetate because regular acetate will not. Now this is just regular acetate. I love this stamp set so much. They have a couple in the style Trinity does. And I cannot wait to color this. But I really wanted to try it as a floating sentiment, like above everything. And so I'm stamping on acetate. I am treating this with kind of like my anti-static tool because I'm not really sure. I'm going to be honest. I'm not really sure how it's going to work, if I'm going to need to emboss it or if it will just stamp and stay. And so I'm using white StazOn. And this is made for stamping on plastics. It's very, very sticky, but I was very, very nervous that if I stamp down, because the stamp is new and it's super sticky and the ink is super sticky, that I wasn't going to get a second shot at the acetate. So I took forever inking this up. to make sure. Then I was also really, really thorough with my stamping. So I went through, I gave it good pressure. I did it again. I got up out of my chair. I CPR'd it. I was like, be sure you're sure, Kelly. And then it did pick up the acetate. However, when I peeled it off and I just went kind of at a diagonal, it was perfect. It was perfect, you guys. It dried almost immediately. There was no need to emboss it. And StazOn does have other colors. So it absolutely is the go-to ink for a floating type sentiment. This is the Spellbinders, the Glimmer Specialty Acetate that is meant for heat. It's meant to take heat, so you can hot foil it or you can heat emboss it. I have a feeling the hot foiling would probably work better, but this will work also. And for this one, I did treat with my anti-static tool because we are going to be heat embossing. So I'm just stamping in a regular pigment ink, same ink I would stamp on if I was stamping on cardstock. And for this one, I did get 2 chances at it. So I'm inking it up with some gold ink, stamping it down 2 times. Then I'm going to go ahead and remove it from my MISTI. I'm going to put on my gold embossing powder. Now, acetate is notorious for being staticky. That's why you have to treat it with your anti-static tool, even if maybe you live in a climate where you don't normally need to. I even got some on the back of it, and I knew that it would melt if I left it there. So I just, very quickly kind of wiped it off. As long as you haven't heated it yet, you can always wipe it off. Once you heat it, it is permanent. Now, I did notice with this one, and I just did it the same way that I always do. I wasn't like super quick with moving it around or anything like that. I did it as if I was embossing a piece of cardstock. And I did have a very slight bit of warping on the left-hand side. Not at all like what regular acetate does, because regular acetate just crumples and folds on itself. But this is so cool. Because it gives you the opportunity to put your sentiment over any portion of your card, no matter if you have die cuts down or stenciling or whatever, and for it not to interfere with your scene. Like in this one, there is a true scene. In the other one, it's more just like a colorful, kind of rainbowy background. But this is so awesome for just like, if you don't know where to put on a sentiment, this might be an option for you. But again, you do have to have the proper tools. So either you have to have the StazOn ink that you can stamp on a regular acetate, or you have to have the specialty heat safe acetate that you can do the heat embossing on. Either way, really cool, would recommend. So for the background of this one, I am putting on some stickles. It's just some Stardust stickles that are glittery, and I'm going to let that dry while I work on some other things. I decided that I wanted to, my grass was looking a little flat, but also I wanted to create just a little bit of a shadow. I have this light that's coming behind, from the cross, there would be a little bit of a shadow. And so I didn't go crazy. I just went with a mid-tone marker, but I did map it out first with a very light color, just in case I didn't like it. And then the other thing we're going to do is I'm going to add some grasses in, darkest on the outside, bringing in the lightest towards the cross. This is going to help frame our focal point, because so we have the rays up top, which are literally pointing us directly to the cross. Isn't that apropos for life, right? These rays above that are pointing us directly to the cross. And then the grasses, because they're darker on the edges and lighter towards the center, it will draw your eye again immediately to the cross, which is our focal point. So in order to build this is not a shaker card, but it does kind of have to be treated like a shaker card, because if you don't have any height on your sentiment, it will not appear to be floating. So Trinity has these great adhesive foam strips. They're perfect. They're literally perfect for these kinds of little frames. They are 1/8 of an inch wide by, they're 1/8 of an inch thick by 1/8 of an inch wide. And then they're like 4 inches tall. So they're pretty perfect for an A2 size card, quite honestly. And you absolutely can cut your own foam. I normally do, but I have these now, and I'm telling you, I will never go back. Because I abhor, I really do, having to try to get the perfect amount of foam tape with the perfect amount of width for a shaker card. It just makes it not as enjoyable, but this makes it really easy. So in order to create the height that I need for my sentiment to float over the top, I do have to have that foam tape to create that height. So I do use a little bit of liquid glue on mine, just because it gives me a little bit more wiggle room for making sure that my frame goes down correctly and that everything is really smooth and adhered well. So once you have this one on, I should have said earlier, and I apologize, we're going to need 2 of those white frames per card. So I cut 4 total. So now that's on, I can build my background before I put my quote unquote lid on it. And then, so I'm going to put the cross down there. And this is very pretty on its own. I like it with a little bit of swag because, it gives it that kind of pop of color. But these were really very easy to build. The only part that lays on top of each other is the top portion of the swag and then the little accent sides. Everything else, just kind of gets built flat. They are cut to just like butt right up against each other. So here, putting on that little side piece, that little lighter side piece to help give it some more dimension. These, I really, really like this. There's also another one that came out in this release that I did not use, but I am interested in using for some more Easter cards, which is the three crosses. And that is done in like a shadow, basically. So it cuts out the 3 crosses. But I could not get over the font. So in this, there's also like little adorable little gnomes and leprechauns and stuff. But the font for the He is Risen is also repeated in some of the other sentiment scents. And I love this font. Guys, am I the only one? I love it. It's so pretty. So anyway, now everything is built on the inside. I don't have anything else to add. You could totally make this a shaker, but while Easter is obviously a wonderful celebration, I did not feel like it was fitting to make this a shaker card. Not that there's anything wrong with it. I just couldn't get behind it. And then, so I did use Trinity's, what do they call it? Rip and stick tape, which again is that same kind of 1/8 of an inch. So it's perfect. And then you just rip it off. Now we're going to put this piece of acetate right on top. This is our little lid, and you can see our sentiment is, sitting kind of high above our scene, which again, I love. You'll be able to see the warping here in just a minute, because I'm going to turn it on its side for you, but it's over by the H. And then in order to hide the acetate, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to put down, 4 pieces of the rip and stick tape, and then I will put its additional frame on top. You could also use a liquid glue, but I already had this out, so just going to remove those pieces, and then I will stick that second frame on. It sandwiches the acetate between the 2 frames so that you can't see, any of the edges. Also, you feel free to make your frame whatever color you like. I've done them in the past where I've blended them into the scene, but I really liked the white because I had like the white in the clouds and I just felt like it was popping. So I used white for both of them. But then that is this whole card. It is done. Here is where things went awry. So this came out awesome. Like, love, love, love it. But my background was too light. I needed a darker background. So what you see over there on the right is my backup. But before I go to my backup, which I'm truthful with you, my backup was to do distress oxides, which show up on a black background with the clouds the same way, but use it on black so that you would be able to read the sentiment better. But before I did that, I was like, you know what? I did them as pastels. I'm just going to go back in and I'm going to be super heavy with my ink application. And maybe that will be dark enough that you will be able to read it better. And that did work. However, let me caution you. Make sure you're cleaning off your stencil because right here, I got lazy. and I didn't clean it off because I was like, orange and pink, close enough. But what I didn't realize was in order to match it up, I had to flip it over. And when I flipped it over, I pressed, can you see that orange right on top of my yellow? Yeah, I pressed it right into there. And then that will honestly create quite a bit of the way that my card is shaped from here on out, because I'm trying to fix my boo-boo. So first things first, I try to just get rid of that section and make it orange. But I didn't love the way that it looked. Like, it would have been passable, but it wasn't great. So I'm going to end up putting my rainbow right over top of it. So in order to just create a little bit more interest in the background, I'm working with Distress Inks. They are... They work with water. I don't know why that I can't think of the word that I want, but you get what I'm saying. They work with water. So I did some splatters of just some clean water, and then I am going to do some spatters of Perfect Pearl. You could use, a shimmer spray if you like. You could use paper splatter if you like. Metallic watercolors, whatever. I like Perfect Pearls. And then here, because now I know that I'm going to cut my rainbow in half, I cut a little half circle. Do you remember it was a couple of weeks ago, I did the pizza and the donut cards. The base of that card is also the same size as the rainbow. So you can create a rainbow with that base just by cutting it in half. And then you could have a rainbow-shaped card. And actually, one of my teammates did that, which looks really super cool. But so I just did that. I just cut one of those little circles, and then I cut it in half so that I could get my rainbow adhered on it, and it would all be together. I'm going to trim off my excess white. I'm not super worried about... like the inside edge. I like to cut it at, you'll see I have a pretty severe angle. This helps create like a beveled edge so that the white is tucked underneath the purple. And then this is going to give me a whole movable rainbow. So here, I know that my rainbow is going to have to be at an angle, which means my edges are not going to be straight. But that's okay because I'm going to cover them up with the clouds. And then instead of having to do two rainbows, it's going to let me cut it in half and use the second part of the rainbow for kind of like the bottom half of the card. In real life, it's very hard to take a picture of this, by the way. Anything that has, the other card has embossing and it's on acetate. But I do have some still shots. I share them over on Instagram, but I will try to remember to share them over on my blog. Sometimes I'm blogging good. Sometimes I'm blogging meh. You know what I'm saying. Life is hard. So like I said, in order to cover up those kind of wonky edges, I'm going to use the clouds to cover those up. So it's a little bit of a trick just to make the rainbows look straight. And I really like this background. I think it's super fun and bright and playful. In real life, I think you can see the sentiment so much better than you can see it on the camera. And I wish there was a way for me to show you. But yeah, it does. It looks so much better. However, I do think that I will be investing in maybe another color or two of the StazOn, just because I'm a person who likes a bold black. I think for me, that would be a great investment, and that would have been wonderful in this particular, because I love a black and white with a rainbow. I mean, have you been here before? And so I think that the black would have been fantastic to kind of hover over the top. Alternatively, I could have done another heat embossed one. But I only had the white. That's all I have. All I have is the white StazOn. So more investments will be made, I'm sure, much to my husband's dislike. But, he's normally supportive. So I'll just put it in another box that he won't have to see. We all have to do what we have to do, right? You know what I'm saying? So now here you can see this background's super cute by itself. Absolutely. But I'm going to turn mine into a shaker card. This one I absolutely felt was giving shaker vibes. And Trinity has all of these really great embellishments that just came out. Plus, I told you, these little strips make it super easy to turn it into a shaker card because they make everything tall enough and you don't have to do two layers and they fit pretty perfectly. If you were going to turn this into a shaker card, you do need to make sure though that all of your foam tape is touching each other. Like you have to make sure that there are no gaps for your little shaker friends to escape. So now once that is done, I'm going to put this on, and again, because I'm already going to be sandwiching it between the two frames, I don't have to put the lid on it yet. I can actually just put my shaker bits right into the base of my card without having to flip over the base and put it onto the acetate, which is what I would normally do. So these little guys, these little rhinestones are so cute. I love their names. They're very pastel for spring. So the Pinky Promise, which is like the pinkish purple one, probably my favorite. Weird, I know. And then there's Pulled Taffy, Orange Cream, Rubber Ducky, Spring Green, Cornflower, and Thistle. I used all of them. I used that pink a little aggressively in the beginning, and you saw me, I kind of had to scoop some back up. But I knew that I was going to have to be pretty generous with my filling because it is a whole card front. You know what I'm saying? If I did not want to do the, you know what, honestly, I probably should have tried it, and I didn't even think about it. Because I was thinking, I didn't know if I had to heat emboss it. But Trinity has like the full front, like for a flat shaker, the pockets that wrap around the back. I probably could have stamped on that and done it without any of the bulk. So maybe something to try in the future. But anyway, so once I have all these little guys in here, I do go in and, this is the Pinky Promise. Isn't that cute? It's so cute. I do go in and spread them out just to make sure that none of them are too high, and aren't going to cause an issue where like I get one rhinestone stuck on top of the other. And then I'm going to go back in again with that same kind of a rip and stick tape, in order to adhere my acetate and then the additional frame. So yeah, while this one did take me substantially longer than I anticipated because I kind of had to redo the background, I still really like the way both of them came out. I think I like the cross one only slightly better because the metallic is more readable just at a glance. But like I said, in person, you can read the white. These almost remind me of like the kids like piggy banks. Do you know what I'm saying? Like where you would be able to see all of the dollars like in the clear front. I wonder if there was a way to like make that work, like for a little Easter gift or first communion gift or something, and make it so that you can put money in it. I don't know. I'll have to think on that. But nonetheless, these are both of the cards. I think the floating sentiment thing is super cool, and I will definitely be trying it again. I'd love to know if you're thinking that maybe you would try it. Again, thank you so much for joining me. I always appreciate your time, and I will catch you guys on the next video. Bye.